I had called the group Christ. I remembered the Titans who, according to Greek mythology, were trapped on our world called Earth. Perhaps we can count 1,000 Titans, each with different names. At the very least, mythology says they appeared here more than 2,000 years ago. They are like us, and if so, the group Christ comes from them to guide humanity toward the kingdom of heaven. Not just the ascension, but the integration of matter and spirit. Note taken from Reflections of a Guru. Page 8. First Secret Chamber of America, founded on the autumn equinox in 2010. Introductory note, August 6, 2017. That thing about the secret chamber is something very sacred. I returned from my retreat in a different way. In fact, my character is very different from anyone in the Solar Line fraternity. I knew that the Solar Line fraternity was going to fall and become a kind of church. I knew that Master Estrada shouldn't have let them dress permanently in white, growing their hair long for life, and performing the cosmic ceremony daily. I came to form the secret part of the SOA. A SOA more suited to the world. And for that very reason, I cannot be the equal, in character, of Master Estrada. Because I can point out his errors, and not expect to be listened to. That's the way it must be. But I can found a secret chamber. Because I'm the direct spiritual successor of the 3 Satgurus of the age. That cannot be taken away. Without me, a true secret chamber of the messiahs of the age cannot function. Only I can sustain it, even though I know nothing about the secret chamber, and must attend it, almost as someone who learns, on the fly. And so it will be with many initiations and initiatic knowledge, that I will surely acquire. Recognizing with this, I have the state of grace that allows me to know if something is right or wrong, even if I don't know it for sure. For example, when I write and design my universal ceremony, I can be sure that at the very least, the Americo Living Trail 519 charge required by the cosmic ceremony of the solar GFU is complete. Not simply because it seems to me, but truly because I know it is so. That is, in some way, I can know that the energy goes to the entire planet, and that I'm who I am, on par with Master de la Ferrier, Estrada, or Tibetan himself. I can't avoid it. I'm a direct brother of the Satgurus. And I'm not here to alter their status as the Christs of the age of Aquarius. But only to participate in the charge that the planet needs to save it. And for that, I was requested and then prepared. With the founding of the first Chamber of Secrets in Tijuana for Americo's mission, the sacred symbol of having built the solar temple of the New Age was fulfilled, approximately 3 days after the death of the rector of the initiatory colleges of the Solar Line, Guru Marcelli. I lost the entire Solar Line. Something that I also experienced, post-mortem, the creator of that solar line himself. I'm referring to Master Estrada, who realized that his solar line wouldn't have the power to reach the world's governments and save the world. The evil everywhere was too much, and many became confused. But not me. They, the old, beloved, and respected hierarchs, do not have total authority over me, but only in those aspects that make me their brother. Because we, that is, the 3 Satgurus and yours truly, obey higher authorities of a galactic nature. For example, I'm not Master Estrada. He is unique only in the sense that he is truly made for the tone and vibration of humanity on this planet Earth, for its own evolution for Aquarius. That is why he was chosen to be an earthly avatar. That is to say, he, and each one of us as cosmic brothers, are chosen at a given moment, not because we are the most evolved, and there is no one better or higher in degree than us, but only because we are designed for one mission or another. For example, now that things are getting very difficult, and there will be terrible catastrophes, before we achieve the era of peace, I'm being sent to remain physically, tending to the energy needed to ensure that everything is not lost. I love brotherhood, but honestly, I don't beat around the bush regarding my being a demanding master when it comes to paying money up front when I'm asked to go to another country or province. And things like this in relation to finances. It's true that I'm like that, and I continue to be. Because, on the one hand, I'm not an Aquarian-type missionary like Master Estrada, or de la Ferrier. And, on the other hand, my mission is very different from that of the avatars, in the sense that I come to fill burdens and fill gaps that are neither practical nor truly Aquarian. Besides, I need to meditate more. I need a separate place to recover my energy. It's not a question of luxury, it's a question of distance from people, because I wield a more superhuman and all-encompassing energy, in a different way than the Satgurus of the age. Since they cannot resolve, act in emergencies, and disintegrate serious problems for the good of humanity, as I'm designed to do. In any case, I cannot stop attending to some privileged groups in person, and everyone has, and will have the right to follow me or not, if it is their will and desire. Greetings. American Crosses, Chambers and Universal Ceremony, by Americo. Americo Living Trail. 520. 520. The Chamber of Secrets may have a password, ritual, dress code, etc. But the most important thing is the guru or priestess who directs it. That's the key. So what really matters is the leader and the rules that govern the Chamber of Secrets. The Chamber of Secrets is coeducational, which is understandable, and only those who possess the flower of life cross belong to it. This is the true chamber. But the secret chamber can also be called the one where those with the Aquarius heart cross enter, the medium cross I spoke of, where special guests who do not wear a cross are admitted. The meetings that take place as an initiation school are pre-chamber. The interesting thing is that, over time, the intergroup chamber is formed, when members of various secret chambers meet. There is the Chamber of Elders, when those with the most experience and age are chosen to be a permanent council of wisdom. The exoteric chamber exists when various scientists and thinkers meet. There is the female Chamber of Secrets just for pure women. Taken from Mission Tijuana, page 38. Universal Initiatic Schools. Master Americo 1. Humanity is dying, and right here the universal race, that is the humanity of Aquarius, is being born. If an official successor dies, the real one is born on the third day. Tijuana Mission, page 63. Apostolic Succession, by Americo. Answers given by Americo himself, but in an impersonal tone. Question: according to the Black Book of Freemasonry written by Master Renaud de la Ferrière, who is Power X? A. Answer: Power X is represented by the three aspects of a single Christ and a fourth aspect. All are perfectly concrete material spiritual aspects. These aspects are Christ Group, Christ Mass, Christ, and the fourth, Christo Goddess or Christo Virgin. What is the problem of the two pontificates, and how is it resolved? A. It's already been resolved. It's evident that Master Estrada could place the secret chambers wherever he wanted, and the white hierarchy can transfer the royal initiatory power of the Satgurus to whomever it deems appropriate. If the Tibetan remains galactic, and de la Ferrière doesn't want a physical body, it's because we all have. Americo Living Trail. 521. 521. Free will. And just as the secretary of a nation's government can be dismissed, or resign because he wants to, a high initiate can do the most. The GFU deserves respect, and is a New Age movement. But there are secret chambers and secret chambers. A man was called to the apostolic succession of the three Satgurus. He is Amerigo. But Amerigo didn't want to manifest himself as a world guru with powers or siddhas, the 8 powers, that every yogi develops, so he decided to be a more or less human guru. Those in the prime of life offered him, and his wife, the opportunity, to become nodes in the planetary Christ consciousness network. But it was a synthetic network. That is, based on very advanced, and very spiritual technology, but still technology nonetheless. So advanced as to allow the ascension of our planet from the third dimension to the fourth. Something that was carried out with resounding success. But this was not carried out by the former Satgurus, Tibetano de la Ferrière Estrada. They had left the package to Americo. Just as Estrada announced in the last conference, there may be a successor, but that is something very mysterious. These were not the exact words of Satarhat Estrada, but more or less, that's what he said, and there are videos of this last conference. The fact is, that those three Satgurus were minding their own business, and Americo, along with his wife, was left at the head of this network of Christic consciousness, which, of course, went from synthetic to real. Americo had renounced his ascension-related faculties. However, he was sustained by a higher power. But he also wanted to remain human, because the best thing for everyone was to share his Christic power in the aforementioned quaternary, Christo group Christo Mass Christo Goddess Christo number, Christic quaternary, teachers 1 Christo Tibet and Serge Reynaud de la Ferrier Jose Manuel Estrada Vasquez 2 Group Christo group of Christs who came from a higher world or galaxy 3 Christ of the masses the very people who emerge from among humanity, and become the chosen people for the age of Aquarius 4, hides the unmanifested, behind the one Christo Goddess Americo and his wife. First, he did it this way, because many great hierarchs wanted to remain as avatars of the age, including ascended ones from planet Earth, but also from other planets such Americo Living Trail 522 as the Pleiadians, Arcturians, Sirians, etc. Since this planet, due to its very young humanity, is like Africa fought over by Europeans, English, North Americans, etc. That is to say, the same thing happens on Earth, which is like Africa, and the galaxy, which are like nations, that want to do something here for this humanity, for better or for worse. In view of these circumstances, and remembering the teachings of his past masters, Americo remained the human successor of Ferrier and Estrada, but also, cosmically and humanly, united with the group Christ, who are high hierarchs, many of whom, by their own will and service, become part of the group Christ. They, as I said, have physical bodies and their wives, having adopted Earth as their headquarters. They, I repeat, are here physically. And this great group is not interested in forming a GFU, Great Universal Fraternity, as an institution, that is, they will do so in a relative way, and at their whim. Because in reality, they are citizens of the galaxy, but confined to our Earth. So, these matters are what truly interests them. The most awake among them know a galactic gospel. And with the transition to the fourth dimension, although the third-dimensional Earth remains, the galactic evangelical prophecies have been fulfilled, and the Earth advances in the galactic. UFOs will very slowly cease to terrorize all of humanity, and only a very select portion of it will remain in contact with extraterrestrials and their work outside our Earth, while the rest will remain more or less ignorant of reality outside this planet. For the majority of people belong to the great mundane laboratory, where the human animal reigns. And this state of consciousness must be respected. So, rather than achieving a world government, one can aspire to a world confederation of nations, such as the Organization of American States, the European Union, or the United Nations itself. Always prevailing is the planetary defense of self-governance for this Earth with its humanity, whose internal spiritual government is in the hands of the ascended ones of this planet who have sent and support Serge Reynaud de la Ferrier and Jose Manuel Estrada as avatars of the Age of Aquarius. Tijuana Mission page 108 to 110. The Real Estrada, by Americo. Once upon a time, in the mid-20th century to be exact, there was a very famous man who dressed in white, and had a long, white beard, like his hair. His face seemed carved from living stone. He was known as the Great Guru Estrada. His real name was Jose Manuel Estrada Vasquez. He was Venezuelan. He traveled to various parts of America, and settled for several years in Mexico, before passing away in 1982. But sometimes, it's said that we are the result of a continuity that cannot be stopped. Some individual lives are more archetypal than the rest. We all have a part in this story. I knew well that this Guru Estrada had been in Tijuana and Ensenada before beginning his mission as a guru throughout the Mexican Republic and other Americo Living Trail 523 places in America, before settling in Mexico City. That's why it was fascinating, and even though I reluctantly wanted to listen to this rather elderly person from Ensenada, Baja California, who spoke to me enthusiastically about her great guru, Jose Manuel Estrada, I was surprised by what she said. Because she had met him, and she spoke to me about it. Behind the curtain, the master explained to me, we were his first group, and we were behind the curtain. Behind the secret chambers he established in various parts of the Americas, and particularly in Mexico. This old woman told me enthusiastically. It was as if the vagaries of life had first brought me to Tijuana, Baja California, and from there, traveling in the car of one of my students, I arrived in Ensenada, expressly to continue a tradition of wisdom. As if the story of the great Guru Estrada had to continue. as if the sacred initiatic tradition had once again found a way for the path to continue. In a way, it seemed like a game to me. It had to be that way so as not to fall into a foolish egomania. Because I saw how not even this elderly woman, a longtime disciple of Estrada, could recognize what I was experiencing as I listened to her speak with such enthusiasm while, surrounded by other people like my student and someone else around, I ate this exquisite rice with great delight in this restaurant in the city of Ensenada, Baja California. There are secrets I'm going to tell you, brother, she told me, secrets that no one knows, because they don't really know what we do, about Guru Estrada, she continued. We were with him, and he told us he ate meat sometimes, even though he officially had to pass himself off as a vegetarian. He explained to us that a teacher can do this. And he has his reasons for doing so. That people are fanatic about everything, even vegetarianism. But very few know how to eat meat. They shouldn't eat meat. But Maestro Estrada ate meat from time to time. The old woman remained thoughtful, after telling me about the adventures she went through in politics in Ensenada, and how she miraculously survived grievous persecutions within the political environment. But I'm going to tell you something that almost no one knows, she continued. Master Estrada took us to a forest one day. We were a very small group, maybe about 10. And suddenly he told us to be silent. He moved away a little, and began to levitate, higher and higher. The old woman remained silent and then added, I remember well the little face of Master Estrada as he was up above, and looked at us, and smiled waving his hand, from above. I listened with amazement to these secrets, shared with me about Guru Estrada. And I realized how life continued, searching for new paths. The elderly sister spoke of it this way, even though it was still common for her to live surrounded by her beautiful Americo living trail. 524 ghosts in her house, because she said it was common to see old man Estrada there. The old woman could only see her great master, while the man to whom she was speaking all this, that is, me, she did not know why she was speaking these things to him. Yes. She was certainly impressed, and at the feet of Master Estrada. Explanatory conclusion. Important aspects of visiting Tijuana, by Americo. In 2007 I was invited to Tijuana, Baja California, and then the brother there took me to Ensenada to have a talk with the teacher Florida, an elderly woman and fervent disciple of the sublime elder brother, Jose Manuel Estrada, 1900 to 1982. The day we arrived in Ensenada, dusk was just falling. My brother from Tijuana was happy because, deep down, it seemed to me, he felt the importance of being the intermediary for this part of the succession of knowledge between Americo and a distinguished servant with the sublime elder brother, the great Guru Estrada. Since arriving in Mexico from his native Venezuela, he had spent the night in Ensenada, Baja California, at the beginning of his work with the former Ferrer Foundation, which would soon expel him from his institution. Therefore, Guru Estrada decided to found the Great Universal Fraternity, baptized by him as Linea Solar. All of this took place in the 1950s and 1960s. The brother from Tijuana, along with his then partner, decided to take us to a Chinese restaurant for lunch. There, Sister Florida, already elderly, perhaps around 70, was delighted to be visited by the brother from Tijuana, whom she showed signs of knowing for a long time. And that's all. Partly because of his communicative and fraternal nature. And partly because she felt a deep-seated impulse, she practically began to confess to me matters of her personal life, her love for Estrada and his sacred mission. Thus, she communicates to me several teachings that are not visible to an already decadent Great Universal Fraternity solar line and an innumerable amount of other lines of fraternity. He tells me that miraculously, even after his disembodiment, he can perceive that Master Estrada, who died physically in 1982, is still alive, from the astral to the physical, and he can see him walking around his house in Ensenada. And what's more, Florida tells me with glee, not only me, but many people who are in my house, whether they are brothers of the fraternity or simply sensitive people, tell me that they see a man dressed in white, and also with hair of that color. So people see him, she adds with marked enthusiasm. She, as I described in the previous section, assured me that the master had powers of levitation, and that she also lamented that the Brotherhood was fanatical about vegetarianism, when one shouldn't be fanatical about anything and eating meat. Americo Living Trail 525 shouldn't be seen as something bad. And that she had survived, while actively participating in Ensenada's social politics, thanks to miracles that depended on the protection she received from the now physically deceased Master Estrada, her master. One day, the master told us to go to a forest, away from people. We did. Then, he moved a few meters away from us, and asked us to watch closely. And immediately, Master Estrada began to rise bodily above the earthen floor, in the middle of that forest. "Oh my master," she says with nostalgic joy. I remember that as he rose about 15 meters, he waved at us from above, still smiling. Naturally, over the years, I, Americo, have wondered what other powers Master Estrada had in his physical life. And I have perceived that he did not have the power of telepathy, but rather a profound intuition about life and the simplest things. He also had the power to heal, and sometimes, under deep need, it has been said that he was able to walk on water in his desperation to save someone. But according to my inner knowledge, I can be sure that what Florida told me was indeed the power of levitation that the great Guru Estrada enjoyed. Teacher Florida explains that Master Estrada had said that the Ensenada brothers were the secret chamber behind the curtain. As a sacred and universal teaching that had begun there, Master Estrada. It was already nighttime when we went to drop Florida off at her house. And I realized it was no coincidence that I had set foot in this place so far from Mexico City, right where Estrada began his mission in Mexico. Therefore, it must be an apostolic succession to continue the work for a new age called Aquarius. From that moment around 1992, when he told me through a vision, "You're next, brother," I was aware that this elderly woman, named Florida, was enthusiastic about talking to us about Estrada, and wanted to be kind. But she never truly imagined that I wasn't just another brother of the great universal fraternity. Nor did I intend to clarify anything to her. Although in my heart I thanked her for having agreed, even under these conditions, to transmit to me such valuable teachings and experiences with the then, relatively young, Master Estrada. I looked at her, and was happy with that, because she, Florida, was fine as she was. She didn't have to know, nor could she believe it, that I was a direct spiritual successor of the avatars of the age. So there was nothing more to say, and after a half hour of conversation, suddenly, there was nothing left to emphasize. And we all understood that the conversation was coming to an end. Then we left. While we were doing so, I began to meditate on my own fate, which had brought me to Ensenada precisely after having lived a 40-month retreat, and having been the custodian of the continuation of an apostolic succession on the internal plane, etc. And that is how, in such a simple yet concrete way, this continuation of the great wisdom was reaffirmed. Returning to myself, I was able to make contact with the places where Master Estrada had set foot, and then establish his solar line. Later that same year, I visited Tijuana again, and this time I was allowed to make a television and radio announcement. Thus, my activity continued almost symbolically, as my work wasn't limited to this place, nor to Mexico, but rather became increasingly impersonal, while also becoming more globalized to various parts of the planet, primarily through the internet. For this reason, it doesn't surprise me that, in September 2010, I was invited to Tijuana by the brother director of the place, who, on some mysterious hunch, got the idea that the first secret chamber should be founded by Americo himself. To this end, Americo Living Trail 526, the brother in Tijuana, had 17 of his students, who addressed me as Venerable Master Americo. The same thing that the brothers and the leadership of Freemasonry in this region symbolically did. In September 2010, my flight landed in Tijuana, Baja California, Mexico. After waiting for about half an hour, my brother from Tijuana appeared, giving us a warm hug. We then headed toward his truck. We immediately headed to the place he had rented, a guest house, where I could leave my things. It was during this journey that the brother, with some regret, told me that Maestro Marcelli had just passed away, and that the Brotherhood was still holding a wake for him. I understood this to be happening in, or near Mexico City. At this moment, I can't help but feel in my heart not only a deep sorrow for the loss of my former guru, but also a powerful intuition that this was no coincidence. Indeed, it turns out that Master Estrada's first disciple, Guru Marcelli, had passed away, perhaps the night before. So, in a most curious way, unintentionally, 3 days after the death of Master Jose Marcelli, I inaugurated the secret chamber of Tijuana. With the knowledge on the subject, that the brother from Tijuana, who holds the second degree of royal initiation, Gagpa, made available to me. This, of course, has value, because Master Marcelli was once my own master, but since I strayed from the line of his teachings, he lost interest in my 40-month retreat and the process I went through called enlightenment, considering it a hoax. Master Marcelli, whom I felt was still, in a way, my guru, I'm referring to when I left my retreat in 1996. For this reason, in 1997 I sent him my work, The Living Path, and others. I even sent them to his children, through a disciple, who had a publishing house called Solar, so they could publish them. But nothing was accepted. However, in 2010, September 23, 3 days after my old spiritual guide passed away, it turned out that everything was given to me to found a secret chamber, not only almost symbolic, but also phantom, since its members seemed to appear magically, moved more by devotion than by true preparation. Does this symbolize a form of resurrection of the teaching and the transmission of an apostolic succession that had to be fulfilled anyway? As is the case with Lazarus, who, according to the Gospel, emerges from his tomb after 3 days of being dead and buried, or as Jesus Christ himself, who comes back to life after 3 days. Or, finally, as he himself said, if the Temple of Jerusalem is destroyed, not one stone will be left upon another, but in 3 days I will rebuild it. Or even the 3.5 days of darkness before the ascension of planet Earth into the fourth dimension. These are symbols that are fulfilled when we are part of the energy that always finds ways of preservation. In short, when one experiences things like this, there is no longer any desire or need to fight for a place as a leader in the world or within a particular institution, although it is not unusual for that to happen. Ultimately, higher forces of light are in charge of the affairs of the world and of humanity. Sincerely, Americo. Tijuana Mission page 126 to 131. Americo Living Trail 527. 527. Apostolate in the Age of Aquarius. Note: the following text is a written audio of the video uploaded to the internet and deals with the conference given by Americo in 2011 about his relationship with his wife and his position on the Great Universal Fraternity Solar Line after leaving his 40-month spiritual retreat. 1992 to 1996. Video 1. I heal a country, because that's how my energy is made. I'm already outside the strictly personal plane. I got into this. I made my destiny with her, because it was my will, it was my decision. And because I saw what was in her. In this case, in Norma. I saw, but when I got to the hospital was going to the IMSS was going to enter a crisis and disappear. It was a fact. The IMSS was going to disappear. In fact, it's going to disappear. There was something she and I had to finish together. I discovered it. They told me. I have inner abilities, I have inner abilities. For me, what we're doing, which I spoke to you about, is child's play. It's child's play for me. I do it because I can teach gurus who make mistakes and make deals with unsuitable beings who are leading humanity to ruin. So, I had the ability. Or rather, I wasn't, but I was guided to Norma. Because she's a diamond in the rough, not a rough into a diamond, no, the opposite. It's a diamond that needed to be worked on, but then, from the beginning, I rebelled against making deals not suitable for generating a hierarchy. Because I came on a mission where a hierarchy must be generated in the world. I mean, you're some lucky ones. You're more like family, who lend me a certain amount of support, so I can do my work. Because what I did was rebel against. There was a plan within what the hierarchy was going to be, but I already knew Norma from other lives. I already knew her. I hadn't seen her for a long time. In fact, I had largely neglected her process, because I'm her master in many ways. although she is my master, and women are always the masters of men. But that happened with her. And when I saw her again, it was because God doesn't make mistakes. She has to carry out her mission, and that, no matter the time. I can't say whether it will be in this life or the next. Surely that's how it will be. But she has to carry out her mission very closely with the people. She's a healer by nature. Naturally. But I was directed toward her. When I revealed myself to, they told me, without us, you're not going to do anything. When Maestro Estrada passed away, he was my brother, a brother of lives. We come together. We come as a group to help this world, we come. I'm a very old soul, very old. I'm already an old man. An old man. I can afford to say it, to speak or not to speak. I already know, I already understood, and that's what she's saying, know yourselves. I never wanted to be a teacher, never. I was a laborer from birth. I remember how I decided. Because I had dreams, when I was little. I was 3 years old and already had dreams 4 years old. And I decided to be born. One day I arrived at the Kotapek ashram with a fever. I arrived with a fever, and I was like that, and I was deciding. I remembered that I was deciding, I want to be born there 59. I'm going to be born in 59. I saw how I came an incarnate edition. I took my body. And I said, yes, but these people are very poor. Where I was going to be born I already had a hierarchy. I already knew what the process is, the process of enlightenment from other lives. I already knew that. Americo Living Trail 528. So, when I was born, I was aware of it. But they're workers. It doesn't matter. I have to be close to the Master, to Master Estrada. I didn't call him Master Estrada, but I knew I was referring to him. I already knew why I wanted to be born close. I had to contact that man who was my spiritual brother. We are brothers. And in fact, I have many things to teach Master Estrada. Not only does he teach me, but I do too. He's never treated me like a disciple, but rather like we're brothers. And Norma comes in there too. We come. It's a group. You must form a group, become brothers. For you to be protected, you are nothing alone. The path is not a solitary one. It's alone, it's individual. But there are always cells that form through evolution. We are always like this. So, when I met her, she was already a healer of people. But in my wisdom, when I revealed myself to the existing hierarchy, when I revealed myself, because I said, the plan like this isn't going to work. Even with the hierarchy that was formed for the New Age. Because these are times of very delicate change, very delicate, very delicate and very beautiful. You are living in prophetic times. But the hierarchy that was about to be born was being formed by the Tibetan master. He is a great master who lives within the planet. They live within the planet, there are beings. Not just outside, there is life within the planet. But it's not so easy to get in, because there are many dangers. Above all, on an energetic level. All planets have life within them. And outside. Not just outside, right, Hitler knew it, and some Nazis, and they went to live inside the Earth. They live inside the Earth. Even the moon has entrances to its interior, right? And there live forces that they say are demons, forces that have to do with the Earth. They're called the lunar pitras. And the sun also has its poles. And things that don't appear in the videos. So, this is a fantastic world, right? Inside the Earth lived a master who began planning the New Age. He was the master of the Tibetan master. Then the Tibetan, and then other masters. Who were Master Estrada, Master de la Ferrier. That they began to be chosen to do the job. Master Estrada has experienced enlightenment. Don't think that enlightenment is impossible. And not all enlightened people are the same. It happens. It's a process that ignites the 7th chakra. Not everyone can reach it, nor is it necessary. But yes, it's not impossible. There comes a time in your evolution when you reach it. After enlightenment comes another process called ascension. The ascension. When you will have the body of light. The ascended can enter another plane called the etheric plane, and there they have powers. These powers are called siddhis. Siddhas are the great powers we attain. So this whole process is where humanity goes. Humanity moves toward the process of enlightenment. But there's a hierarchy that depends on the process. Enlightenment is normal for them. And they still have a physical body. But there's another process called ascension. And it's the one Jesus Christ experiences. Obviously, since we don't know, we are led to believe that Jesus Christ is unique, that as soon as he ascended, he went up to heaven with his Father. I had the cosmic sister who was with me on retreat. A sister and companion. She was my companion. She came to rescue me and allow me to enter into a process I already sensed. I already sensed it. Even though I was a laborer, I learned to work with sheet metal. Not with cars, but with sheet metal artifacts. I was very happy with my life. I was always very disciplined, by nature. So, I would come in, and do my job and everything. I was very happy with my things. But one day I realized I couldn't. That I had to do something. I said, I'm not from here. I have to do something, I'm not from here. I'm playing dumb. So, I became the most disciplined person. I practiced yoga, hatha yoga. A process began. But I got involved with the mother of my children. A woman who wasn't right for me, but it seemed like she. America Living Trail 529 was. Because she traveled all over the world. I mean, she had traveled to different, important places in the world. That, for me, was the reason I wanted to be with her. But in reality, she wasn't a woman who was right for my mission. So, I had children, but I couldn't get out of there. I was stuck, like I was stuck in that process with my children. And then, I got caught up in the financial issue. Then there was a war, because of the evil, dark forces. Fortunately, not all human beings have to fight with those forces, although they think they're fighting, but it's their size. We all fight at our own size. But those evil forces have been chasing me from other lives. That is to say, there are forces that are chasing you because they chase certain types of beings. Don't think the devil is interested in chasing just any guy. No. It has to be someone of value. Jesus Christ. They chase that one. So I was persecuted since I was little, and I have miraculously been saved from things. Miraculously. So, when I stayed there, in my life, what I'm telling you about, I could no longer walk. It was when I entered the 40-month retreat, I decided. Something moved me. I said, I have to prepare myself. Then, a woman appeared to help me. And thanks to that, I reacted. I reacted to the fact that I had to live something new. Something that I had to do something for humanity. I owed something to the world, because, anyway, you are very elevated in relation to this world. Because, before the universe, we are nothing. But speaking of this world, you are super, that is to say, I already had a hierarchy. I was already marked. Not all of us come like that. Unfortunately, we don't want to learn from those beings, we don't. We want to teach. All disciples want to teach. And they don't want to learn, right? They want to be teachers, but they don't learn. When you're a teacher, they no longer want to teach, and they teach. Even if they don't want to see you. So, the problem with me was different. I couldn't get out. So, I was trapped. I got bogged down, in a way. Because the mother of these children who are around here. I thought it was fantastic that she was traveling. She had been a nun in India. But she had also been in the Chilean Revolution. She had been preparing bombs to defend the people. And allowing things that weren't very good. And drugs. And she was in the Nicaraguan war during Somoza's reign. She was a guerrilla there, with the guerrillas, with the groups. Although she wasn't exactly a guerrilla, she was there. Video 2 I thought it was intelligent. But it wasn't suited for my job. My job was on a different level. My job wasn't just with Earth, but with a hierarchy that operated in the solar system, for example. It already came with a different kind of energy. An energy that was suited for this era. I had prepared myself a lot for this moment, which is why it was so powerful when she showed up and gave me 4 children. That stopped me completely. I was practically finished. But this woman who came made me react. Because it's through love that you react. So, after I emerged from the 40-month process of meditating to center myself, because I had forgotten about God, I had become human. Because in your desperation to be well, you become human. Totally human. I welded, I put bells in cafeterias, I remember. I folded sheet metal, made ovens for bread, and vulcanized tires. I was a worker, a worker, a worker. Totally human. And suddenly I said, I'm playing dumb. And I can't play dumb anymore. Because, at that time, many books fell into my hands. Esoteric ones. Just like what happened to my wife. But then, when I emerged from my retreat, I rebelled against the hierarchy that had formed. And I realized something was wrong. For this, I must say, that when Maestro Estrada died, 1982, he appeared to me in a dream. I already talked about this in a video I made about Living Path. Obviously, given my personality, it seems like I'm joking. Like I'm not being serious. And that's how it has to be. Because it's not the right time yet. But everything is fast approaching. Americo Living Trail 530. So, my teacher Marcelli told me, after Master Estrada had already passed away, I'm going to make you a guru. I'm going to put the guru's cross on you. And that happened, because the mother of my children, who was with me at the time, came to accuse me. Teacher, he's been misbehaving with me, and he scolds me, and I don't know what. Then he said to him, tell Raphael to prepare himself, and have money, because I'm going to make him a guru. Master Marcelli passed away, 2010. He just passed away about a year ago. So, that was very noticeable, because a master doesn't form gurus just like that, nor does he tell a student, I'm going to make you a guru. That's not going to happen. That's a very long process in the institution we have called the Great Universal Fraternity, which no longer exists. The GFU as an institution no longer exists, it's over. There are some here, there, everyone is fighting. Everyone feels they bring the truth. There are about 20 great universal fraternity groups. Because we all want to be gurus. We all want to be leaders. No one wants to obey. We don't like it. We are all political. It's not a real initiation, it's a political. Esoteric. That's all we are, esoteric. But when Master Estrada was there, he made a very strong impact. Why? Aside from the fact that he was my brother, and when I saw him, I said, he is my brother. Of course. I felt bad, because I was a nobody, a nobody. I was a nobody. A worker, as I tell you. And when I saw him, I said, he is my brother, he is my brother. I felt bad because I said, no. He is my master. Dressed in white, already old. He must have been 80 years old, 78 years old, when I met him. I only saw him for 4 years, no more. When I saw him one day at the ashram, I saw him dressed. Wow, this man is perfect. Perfect. Then I realized that I was born to follow him. And that's when I had that dream, one day, that delirium. Because I was delirious when I arrived at the Kotebek ashram. Because in the dream, a being told me, go, why are you here right now, lying down, in this ashram? Because you had to be born. And I saw that I was born. How while I was in my mother's womb, he said, I must be born in 59. I must be born, because I must meet this man. Who was he? Master Estrada. Then, I realized that. How do you say it? God's ways are mysterious. Because everyone who was already after the bound, so to speak, politically and esoterically, they were hoping to take over the leadership. Given that Maestro Estrada was about to die, they were all preparing to be consecrated. And at that time, about 3 people fell in. El Segura's husband was Rafael Valero. And she's from a certain aristocracy, we could say. You know, this woman is an artist. She was dating Mauricio Garces. It's also known that Maestro Marcelli met another artist. Gurus are very persecuted. But I didn't choose a woman like that. I chose my wife. I didn't go crazy for artists. On the other hand, Rafael Valero was a maestro who was going to reach the 4th degree. Maestro Estrada was going to consecrate him, he was going to place the cross on him. The guru's cross. And then he said, I'm not going. I'm not going, because I'm already more than that. because my name says. He is trying to make a speculation. Anyway, he married Elsa Aguirre, who isn't a bad person. I think she's even smarter than him. And then, he went out with a very pretty student, very, very pretty. That's where the temptations come in. They cost a peso. I myself have experienced very strong temptations. With millionaire women who arrive and gush. But stay with me. Everyone goes through their own path. So, the further you walk, the stronger the trials become. They're called trials. That's what they call them. And like Esther de Valero, others also appeared. They also failed to get the job. Now it's the bone. I tell you, the bone, everyone knows what that bone refers to. Keeping the bone. But no one stayed, so I had the dream about Maestro Estrada. He told me, "You're next." And then, I began to study everything, all of Maestro Estrada's notes. He was a man who waited for Maestro de la Ferrier in America for 10 years. He waited for the Christ of the New Age. And he said he was the Christ. He tells of seeing a man dressed in white rise from a tomb. This is how he describes his vision. Americo Living Trail 531. 531. That's why I wrote The Gospel of Aquarius. Because I am rescuing everything, that's my mission. It's my work. Something very sacred. It's already online, toward the Gospel of Aquarius. But, it's all because I'm the missing link in the hierarchy. I mean, I found my wife, I had to find her. The woman I was with on my retreat only prepared me. She said she was Tibetano's wife. His soulmate. It's not even worth discussing, because no one understands. It's something only the hierarchy understands. It's a family thing. Because I belong to that family. But I was young when Master Estrada passed away. I was young, I was 21, Master Estrada 82. I was just a kid. Then, the oldest one appeared, Pedro of the Era. They called him Pedro of the New Era. That's how they know him esoterically. And before he began the mission, it was already known. There's a very interesting book called The Mystery of the Andes. I don't remember. And it talks about how they were waiting for the elder brother. So, the elder brother was already predicted to appear, at the beginning of the age. These are evangelical things, so to speak. From a New Age perspective, but not religious, there's always a younger one and a very old one. And one has the esoteric mission and the other the outward mission. But all of this is a drama, because the things are different. And when I met the woman who would become my wife, she was at her clinic. There. Already with her career. She was the way she found her path. Because from a young age, she had already rebelled against being subject to the rules of her own family. She was one of those women who decided to own a home, and have her own children. In other words, she didn't depend on whether her partner, the father of her children, was there or not. And that, of course, means rebellion. That is, having the ability to make your own life. To live life the way you feel you should live it. She did that. And she healed. She healed that way in the clinic. She healed people. But I was like the lost stone there. So when I came out of my retreat, and realized they weren't going to want me in the GFU anymore, because they told me so, no longer because I had recognized that there was a more appropriate line. And that the GFU was already going to decline. Because the masters had predicted it to me beforehand, during my retreat. 5 years before, I had already known that there was nothing left in the GFU. Except for people who were interested in shining as individuals. And that was how it had to be at the beginning of the new age called Aquarius. This doesn't mean that all the hierarchs there are bad. There may be some who deserve the rank they hold. They thought I was going to reach the great universal fraternity. But I didn't make it to the GFU. I went to a yoga institute. And I went to teach astrology classes. That's what I did. I said, leave me alone now. I understand. I'm going to do my work, but I'm not going to go to the institution. Because they don't want me. I tried to go, and I got there, and they didn't accept me. You have to do yoga for I don't know how many years. Ugh, I'm just coming from a retreat. You have to go do yoga. And write down why you're going to the initiatory school. But how, if I'm the master? I already had the experience. Yeah, the experience. After you live with a woman like the one I lived with in my retreat, you can't go back. Not anymore. So, I was already living something else. So, I arrived and said, well, not anymore, I'm not going to worry about anything. And he arrived at the institute there, to Villa de las Flores. Villa de las Flores. A very pretty name. Villa de las Flores. Video 3 that he arrived at my institute. I started teaching my astrology classes. And I returned to the radio, there with Shea, my protector, who was Shea Mitchin, specifically about health. Everything related to health seemed very strange to me. But I was learning to heal places. I began to support Shea with my mind, with my form, with my energy, I can say. They are special people. They can now heal things with their energy. Americo Living Trail 532. And then, I met the woman who would become my wife. I met her there. And she caught my attention right away, I mean, we were both younger, actually. And then, she caught my attention. I knew there was something more than just her attracting my attention as a woman, she caught my attention as something more. There was something we hadn't fulfilled. But God, there it is. There it is. I didn't want anything else to do with women. After the last thing, when I broke up with the person who was with me on the retreat, I had already lived through it all. I mean, I had experienced a form of sexuality that has to do with God, so to speak. Now, what else? Now, there couldn't be more. So I was convinced that women no longer. And she was my student for a year. And my students were no longer the hierarchs. Because I didn't go and beg them. Because I was just like Master Estrada. Master Estrada is a rebel. They kicked him out of Venezuela. Plus, he put Master de la Ferrier's wife in her place. She was already Satchela. With her crucisota. I mean, more than a guru. I'm talking about a priestess. We're talking about priestesses. So you can see who my own wife is too. And the person who was with me on the retreat was another priestess. And when I talk about priestesses, I'm talking about New Age women, who come with a different new vibration. In my wife's case, she has Uranus next to the sun, which gives her all that light. She already had all that. That's why when I entered her house, I saw all her books and said, wow, the books I left behind in my retreat. All my books are here. The Master of La Ferrier, all underlined and like that. Ruled. Just like I did with the books I studied. And I thought, it's not in order either, she rules everything out. And it was, because she was very similar to me. Pretend they were my books. Like this, half battered around the edges. The same. My books are here again. Because we carry the same vibration. These are exceptional cases, don't think that's going to happen to you in life. Life isn't like that, don't get too confident. Almost everything isn't like that. Instead, you should worry about asking yourselves, why is God telling me something of this magnitude? But I'm telling this to a lot of people, they're going to see this. They're going to see it. And it's not directed at one person. Now, it's not that one wants to be seen, one doesn't want anything anymore, but the facts speak for themselves. One day I was on the combi, my public transport, in that beautiful phase I lived with my wife, when I met her. She acted totally uninterested in staying with the maestro, when everyone else around was interested in him. As was the case with a very pretty, blonde, and I might say, perfect girl. Especially because of her doll-like face, a young woman who almost anyone can have an orgasm for, just by looking at her. I remember her coming up to me and saying, Maestro, if you don't want me here, I'm going to go to Cancun, it's up to you. And I thought, that's not a bad package. Because she was a pretty girl. But I told her, okay, go to Cancun, you'll do well. Obviously, all the work I'd already done, had made me mature, in a very difficult way. But I already had my 4 children, and I had to take care of them. It was a very tough thing, I wouldn't wish that on them, it's not for everyone. Don't let them think, I'm going on retirement too. It's not like that. Retiro is something that calls to you. That's why, when my future wife was there, she was interested in being in the class, she wasn't interested in staying with the teacher. In other words, there was a very strong respect between us. And she went to his clinic, and I began to realize that. And I thought, oh, he works at the Mexican Social Security Institute, IMSS. He works there. He works there at the Mexican Social Security Institute, IMSS. She was genuinely interested in learning. She wanted to learn. She never missed a class. She never missed it. There she was, there she was. There she was. He was one of my existing students. And none of them were super gurus. Rather, he was the old man who had his ranch over there with an elderly lady. And others appeared here, just like you. Kids who wanted to learn. And they would say to me, hey, tell me my horoscope. Americo Living Trail 533. 533. I told them, well, we are going to meet at such a place. And yes, we met. And eventually, I thought, well, I'm going to form the order. But originally, I didn't want to form the order, but it was something that came out, or rather, it emerged. Because at first I didn't think about putting up crosses. Don't think I said, I'm going out, I'm going to put up crosses. No. The divine sign was the one who did it. I mean, what I really wanted was to live my life. Because my attitude was, leave me alone. I've already seen. I saw something when I had that process of enlightenment. That's why, when I came out, I said, I'm not anymore. I'm going to dedicate myself to being human again. Because I trained myself to be human, since I was little. I'm going to return to my human life. I'm going to earn a little money for these children I had back in my care who were growing up. That was the point. I said, I'm going to return. I came back, but the surprise was that one of my students there was in metaphysics, where they give out silver crosses. That's how it came about. Don't think I wanted to compete with the GFU, no. I grabbed it and said, silver cross. Hey, and this big cross? Maybe someday I'll use it. I had it made for me, he told me. I said, it's very big, very pretty. And I said, hey, I get it. I think I'm going to put crosses on them the day of the ceremony. Because the truth is, I already had the group to consecrate. But it was to protect them, because they started having a lot of problems. And whoever approaches the work I do, enters into a process, I tell you. A process. Because many things begin to move. And for me, that's something natural, although for my students it's not so much. So. That's why I always keep them there. A little bit away, and I tell them, go, do your things. Because the process is tough. Almost no one can endure it. But I was telling you about when one of those days I was in the van. Then, I fell asleep. And one of the visions I suddenly have. Yes, I have visions. I'm not a fan of that, I'm human. I always take care of my center as a human, otherwise I would have already gone to meditate in the mountains. Because it's a very strong energy, the fact that you have internal faculties. Fortunately, I always feel that life is life here. It shouldn't be true. When many are trying to have faculties. That's what I like to talk about the least. But this time I was in the van, and I was like this. I'd entered another level. And I saw myself dressed in white, just like Maestro Estrada, and like the way I wore my hair, long. Then I saw my students starting to kneel. Those idiots, all of them. They didn't even do yoga or meditate, and all they did was ask me, oh, where is Venus? All those people I chose. We chose each other. They chose me, and I chose them. Because they saw me as the professor of astrology, kind of mysterious. Maybe you're seeing me as the other one. Kind of mysterious, how strange, he talks about things. What a retreat, it even scares me. One day someone told me, listen, Master, what you're talking about the secret chamber. It kind of scares me. And I say to him, it's natural, don't worry. Well, it was normal. The way they talk to you about these things. Then, when they started to kneel down, I put my hand on their heads and said, I give them my teaching because I'm not going to give it away to those who don't deserve it. Then I started touching their heads. And I was awake. I'd been doing that for about 10 minutes, according to some. And, in reality, only about 3 minutes had passed. That's when I reacted again. And I said to myself, I'm not going to throw away my teachings to those who don't want them. I'm going to give them to them, even if it's just to these children, almost. And that's what I was doing. That's why I immediately thought, well, I'm going to found the order. At that moment, I said, well, this is an order. And later, I was reading a book by Rosicrucian who talked about the order of Friars Minor and the Living Gospel. I decided that's what I would name my order after. Americo Living Trail 534 because, funny enough, I was Master Astrid's younger brother. I was the youngest when he died. When he died, is when I saw him in the vision. And then I understood, when he said he had had the vision.